Shalom and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Yehuda Michael. I am a program director at MCTC, Mishav Israel Agency for International Cooperation and Development at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. And MCTC welcomes you to Spotlight on Women Leaders of the World series. This series is hosted by Mishav. MCTC is founded in 1961 by Mishav to conduct a training on a socio-economic arena. Founded by our former Prime Minister Golda Meir, MCTC is the first of its kind on the domain of women empowerment. This series will be held once in a month and will host leading women from all aspects of life. And from all over the world. We will learn from women who made a positive change in a society. We'll learn from their experience and of their impact in sustainable international development. If you have any question, please feel free to write down in the chat section for our guest, and we will come back into this question at the end. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. We are honored today to host Dr. Janet Kabeberi Machariais, head of the Gender and Social Safeguard Unit and the Senior Gender Advisor at the United Nations Environmental Program, UNEP. From 2001 and 2007, Dr. Kabeberi Machariais worked for the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, as the Regional Gender and Development Specialist. Before joining UNDP, Dr. Kabeberi Machariais served as the National Program Officer for the United Nations Development Fund for Women, UNIFEM, Regional Office for Eastern Africa, that based in Nairobi, Kenya. Prior to joining to the UN in 1997, Dr. Kabeberi Machariais was employed as a senior lecturer at the Faculty of Law at the University of Nairobi. Dr. Kabeberi Machariais is a lawyer by profession and holds a PhD in law from University of Warwick in England, a master's in law from Columbia University in New York, and an LL.B from the University of Nairobi. Welcome and shalom, Dr. Kabeberi Machariais. It's a pleasure to have you on this program today.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking time in your very busy schedule to join us from Nairobi, Kenya.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
I also would like to add that we are honored to work with you since 2014 on our yearly training program on the topic of sustainable development. Thank you again for the long-term cooperation that we have with you, and we're looking forward to work more.
Thank you. I too am looking forward to that. Thank you.
Okay, let's jump into the questions. My first question would be, can you tell us about your current position at the United Nations Environmental Program, UNEP, and the projects you are running?
Okay, I'm the head of the Gender and Safeguards Unit at UNEP, that is UN Environment Program. It's a position that I've held since 2007 when I joined UNEP in Nairobi. The gender program in UNEP focuses on integrating gender perspectives in all the work that we do, that is from program and also operations. So we look at all the projects that are being developed by UNEP and ask, what does it mean for the lives of men and women? We use a gender lens, that is looking at perspectives from the perspectives of men and also the perspectives of women. We look at different groups where men and women would be they persons with disabilities, be people living in poverty, be they uneducated and all that, because we have to disaggregate who the people we are working on. So our focus for the last 13 years or so has really been on ensuring that the programs of UNEP are gender sensitive, are gender responsive, that at the end of the day, as we are promoting environmental management, it also has a positive impact on the lives of men and women. And also that what men and women do on a daily basis also has a positive impact on the environmental management. On the operations side, we work with our human resources team to look into matters of gender parity. You know that when you look at the gender parity levels globally, these are very skewed. It's really, the higher you go, the fewer women you have. And we are also privileged to have a Secretary General and also an Executive Director for UNEP, both of whom are pushing for parity. at all levels of employment. So it's an integrated approach that we have applied for the last 13 years. And we also work with partners, and you just mentioned the partnership we have with Mashav and with the MCTC in the Haifa. We work with different government agencies. We work with UN agencies, because in the gender mainstreaming world, you can never work alone. So just in a nutshell, that's what we do.
That's very interesting. Thank you for sharing. My second question would be, how can we advance women involvement in environmental topics in the world? And what is your advice to increase women contribution to sustainable development, since you're working in that field?
Wow, are you ready for this? We could be here until tomorrow. I know this is my pet subject. This is my pet subject. Increasing participation of women in environmental management has to be at all levels of environmental management. You can start from the ground level. We know that women, by virtue of the division of labor, will be interacting with natural resources, be it at household level, be it at, if they are farmers, be it at the levels of looking for firewood, which many other women globally are still using firewood for lighting. So there are different levels of interaction with the environment. But then you also have women coming into decision-making processes. It's very important to include them at all, whether it starts at the local community level, whether it goes to county council level, depending on the structures, governance structures in the country, whether it's at the country level. So we have to now look at all those different levels and ask, how do we integrate not only women as participants or as decision makers, but also their concerns? What are those issues that we still need to address if we are going to move the needle, if we are going to move further than where we are? We can take something as simple as, it's not simple, it's still a lot of work, access to clean and affordable energy. It is not just a woman's issue, it's also a man's issue. But because women are the ones who will be using a lot of energy at household level, we have to understand those needs, those challenges, the health-related impacts of using firewood. What does it mean in terms of household health? What about the issues of household food security? How do we bring these concerns to be able to influence the development of policies and strategies to improve the lives of men and women at that particular level, and also to improve on environmental management? So I would look at more a multidimensional approach to look at different aspects of addressing, integrating women's concerns, and at the same time, also looking at what roles can we play as women in decision making. We have the UNFCCC, which deals with climate change. We have a whole setup structure on how to involve women in decision making when it comes to the climate change negotiations. And this is a very well organized structure. Again, at UNEP, we're looking at how to integrate women, more women participants into our international conferences, so that we can have not only just the face, but also the concerns being integrated into decision making and also into environmental matters. So in terms of ensuring that these concerns are integrated, we need to have sex segregated data. That's the beginning. We need to know where men and women are, what are their concerns, and at what levels are these concerns happening? What does it mean in terms of promoting sound environmental management? So of course, data becomes very important. After data, we start asking ourselves, what does this data tell us? How does this influence policy making? But at all levels, it's important that we should have participation of women and men. By the way, we cannot leave men behind, because you can't just have only one half working. So we have to find out how all these perspectives are affecting and influencing and contributing to sound environmental management.
That's really interesting. Yeah, you remind me that as like educating women is like educating the family, because women have a lot of impact in the family development and the children growth. So that's really, really amazing. Thank you. I'll go in with another question. You have been a lifetime advocate, and you have published books and articles and advanced gender issues. about children rights, women rights, and so on. Can you share with us your main suggestion and the takeaways on how to advance in these issues? What advice you give to professionals working in these fields?
Okay. We have to start from the context within which people live in. So like you said, I wrote a lot about children's rights. I'm still a very firm advocate for children's rights, women's rights, human rights. But we cannot, there's never been one size fits all. We have to understand where people are coming from, the circumstances that surround their livelihoods. What are those factors that influence their daily lives and how they make decisions? And what does that mean in terms of them enjoying rights, or what does it mean that when you say that they've been denied certain rights? So for me, first, I would encourage everybody to start from the context of where the subjects are, the people that you want to write about, the people you want to work with. And this is something that we have seen is very important when we start talking about women's economic empowerment, for example. We've seen projects that target only women, and you find that in that community that the women there are advancing, but they forget that those women don't live in a vacuum, and that they also live in a community, their decision-making structures, their norms within that community. And you find that there's a lot of violence, domestic violence, arising from when the men feel that they've been left out. So from the work I have done over the years, it is important to understand the community structure, the norms, and what does it mean when you're just empowering women? What about the men? What is happening there? How do we involve them into economic development programs and all that? So that then you have a healthier way in which you're involving everybody within the context of the division of labor, within the context of the norms in the society, and you're advancing forward. So we come in as activists, we come in as advisors and all that. We know what it is that we are looking for. We could come up with a whole template saying 1, 2, 3, 4, we've done. But we need to put that aside and understand what we want to work with, the people whose lives we want to uplift, the people who we want to improve economically, whether it's through literacy programs, whether you want to access to resources. So my first advice, like I keep on repeating, is understand where everyone is coming from, understand the context, and work within that context. You don't have to use big sounding words. You don't have to go into big feminist language. You know what it is you want to do, but contextualize all that knowledge to fit in within the community that you want to work with.
That's pretty interesting. Yeah, a lot of guys, people assume feminism is only the women issue, but I think it's also a man's issue that both parties have to take action in order to improve people's lives. So very interesting, very interesting. My upcoming question would be, you were the first Kenyan woman employed as a lecturer in law in 1987 at the University of Nairobi. What was that like? And do you see any change now in the promotion of women in the top position? Can you walk us through that?
Yeah. 1987, yes, I joined the Faculty of Law as a lecturer. As you rightly said, I was the first woman to teach law at the University of Nairobi. And I was the only woman lecturer for about 4 years before other women lecturers came in. So it was a big challenge in terms of fighting for your space. I was young, I was 25 years, and it was all so new to me. I knew I wanted to teach law, but I did not understand the dynamics, the gender dynamics first and foremost in being in an all-male faculty. I also didn't understand what it meant to be a woman who started teaching law, which was a predominantly male domain. And even though we did have women lawyers, but none had ventured to go and teach. So it was a lot of fighting for space. But what I learned from that very time is you also need allies. You also need to put your point across. And of course, by the way, I was a serious human rights activist, women's rights activist, so of course, very hot-headed. But you have to step back and ask now, which are the wars, which are the battles I can win? which are the quick wins that I may have to push my agenda, and what is it I'm pushing for. So looking for the space, you need to have allies, and the allies don't necessarily have to be women. You also get men who have seen the situation and are ready to support you. And the advancement of my career as a lecturer and further into the UN and going to do my PhD, I was actually supported by senior male lecturers at the Faculty of Law. And they could see that it was important that I move forward and start breaking the glass ceiling, opening spaces for other women to come in. So with that, I also found that although some people would say, oh no, that's another feminine trait, but I think it's a trait that everybody should have. You have to push your agenda with humility, because you know what it is you want, and you'll always be blocking you, will be opposing you, will be challenging you, and you're like, oh good God, how do I deal with this? But you need to be, like I say, you step back, you are humble, and when you step back, you actually take a leap forward, a giant leap forwards, and leave them, because they can see you're not being antagonistic. And that is really an approach I've taken for a very long time, and has helped me move ahead in my career. When the University of Nairobi, when more women started coming in, I think the second lecturer who came in was late 89, 1990, the female lecturer. It was then an opportunity for me to start. I decided I need to do a PhD in law, because again, that was a domain for only male lecturers who do PhDs in law and become professors. So again, opening up that space. And fast forward to 2020, we have women professors in law, we have women PhDs, we have women teaching law in the Faculty of Law. It's no longer that gender issue and power politics that were there in the 1987. So I'm happy that I opened the space. I left the University of Nairobi as a senior lecturer. We have now professors. We even have women who have become deans of the Faculty of Law. Of course, now we have more schools of law in the country. So I feel good that I opened up the space, I set the pace, and I'm happy that there are many women that have come up and literally overtaken me. And I take a lot of pride in that. So what I would say is that over the years, we have more women taking up top positions. I'm not saying that it's 50-50 in my country, but we are seeing more women taking up positions, and these are women who are quality. We talk about quality of the people who are coming in. They're substantive in their area. They know what it is in their area, and they can hold their own. And this is very important, especially for the younger generation, to see that it is possible. You can actually enter that space in your own right and with a lot of confidence. And the play. Yeah.
Wow, that's very insightful. There's a lot of movement right now in the world to gender equality and social and racial equality that is moving going on in the world, and we see the change. But I think it's still a lot of work to do. But it's really great for you to see, to hear that in the last 30 years how the things have changed. So thank you so much. My other question is, what have been your biggest challenge, and how did you overcome them in all the lives that you've been through in a lot of or institutions you work in?
The challenges have been many, but I think the greatest challenge is convincing my colleagues, be they in the University of Nairobi then, or in the UN or other partners that I work with, that gender matters. That gender has everything to do with what we are all about. Gender, if we don't address how our programs, our projects, our policy have an impact, a gender differentiated impact on the lives of men and women, we will not be moving. And it's important that we ask ourselves, what does this mean? When you tell us that there's a policy on water, what does it mean at the end of the day, or to the person in the ground who doesn't even know what clean water looks like? What does it mean for their families, for their children, for household health? Just convincing that you use a gender lens in all that you do has been a challenge. But challenges are opportunities. Yeah. When you see the challenge, you look into what is the opportunity here. What is it? Maybe is it the messaging that I'm using that is not getting across, or is it the block? Because we all have biases. Yeah? We all have biases. When you hear gender, you see women, and you see a lot of activism, and you think, oh no, here they come again. So you have to look and ask, okay, this is a challenge, but where's the opportunity? What else can I do differently to help shift thinking? Because integrating gender perspectives into our work is really about shifting what people think, ideologies that people have carried through with them from, and ideas and norms they carry with them from all over the place. But you're telling them, just take a step back and look at it from this lens, and you'll see what it is we are talking about. So it's a challenge. And working for UNEP, which I find very exciting, because the environment world is just so many things happen on a daily basis, and you keep on asking yourself, oh, good, how do I work with this? How do we address gender issues from this? And I've got a fantastic team that keeps on coming up with ideas. Let's look at it from this perspective. So UNEP, when I joined, you might know that it's really a lead in the science. We look at how do we bring science into policy, and having to break into that, especially convincing my colleagues who are in the science domain, that it has a lot to do with gender. We have to look at all these issues. It has a lot to do with inclusion. It has a lot to do with looking at vulnerabilities of men and women. It has so many things that we must address if you really want to put science into action. So that has been the greatest challenge. But like I said, it's not a challenge that's going to make me say, oh, good God, I'm going to hang up my coat and say I've retired. It's a challenge that opens up opportunities for all of us. Yeah.
That's very interesting. You remind me something actually in Israeli culture that we say the failure is the way to success, and that's how everything is done in Israel. So it's amazing. Another question I have to you is, what would you tell your youngest self today?
Wow.
Not an easy one.
Yeah. Well, being a Kenyan, I'd say be unlimited. Be unlimited. Just go for the sky, Get your points across. There's like I said, you do all of this with a lot of humility, because you're trying to break into new spaces, but doesn't mean that you stop looking into how to break into these new spaces. Just be unlimited. Be knowledgeable, put your facts across, and just do it with confidence. Do it with confidence. Yeah. And the youth today have got so many opportunities. Sometimes I wish I had those opportunities. Look into the digital world, look into the new thinking. So many things have happened, since the 80s. So I'd say grab those opportunities and just be unlimited.
Wow, that's amazing. And my last question to you would be, what advice would you give to the next generation of women leaders?
First of all, to this generation, it's time for us to move on and open up space for the next generation. We need to we need to open up space for the new generation. I'm talking about young women in their 20s and in their 30s. For me, in my 50s, I need to start opening up that space for them. And what I would say is be firm in terms of pushing for empowerment of women and girls in particular. We still have that aspect, looking at the challenges that are facing women and girls in particular within society, and then broadening this aspect to also bringing in gender perspectives. We only talk about gender equality and women's empowerment because we know that there's still that group of people who we still need to give a push to be able to come to an equal playing field. But it means when you're doing that, you also must open up spaces for others. It's not like you do that and stay in that space and not open up space. Mentor young girls, show them that it is possible. And at the same time, we also have to remember our young boys who are also needing a lot of mentorship. They also need to be brought up into all these spaces so that they too can understand that it is important for us to live in a world that respects gender equality and rights of peoples. It's important to bring them on board. So continuing to mentor, define the space, be firm, like I say, using your, be confident, putting your points across, but also ensuring that you're still building the next generation, which ought to build the next generation. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Kabeberi Machariais, for being with us today and for sharing your experience with our viewers. It is very educational and inspiring, and we really appreciate that you're doing this. We do have some questions from our audience that my colleague Sarah will join us soon, and she will gonna ask those questions. But I really want to say that we really learn a lot from your experience, and I really want to thank you. And I think Sarah is with us, so she will gonna ask those questions.
Thanks, Yehuda.
Hi, thank you. I've been following the Facebook during your wonderful interview, and I'll let you know that we have people from Togo, Chad, India, Israel, Kenya, Paris, Bhutan, Uganda, Nigeria, who have all said hello and how happy they are to be joining us today. And I hope that for everyone's watching, what they take from everything that you said is that gender matters. Like you said, gender matters, and using a gender lens in everything that you do is so important. And thank you so much for getting that point across. There were a few questions, so I'll go to them. One question from someone on Facebook asked, how would you help women to be firm in promoting women and promoting themselves when they're faced with men who don't want to support their promotion?
Oh, that's the story of my life.
Yeah.
First and foremost, you must be confident in what you're talking about, what you're pushing. You must know the agenda. You must have facts and information at your fingertips. It's not a question of blah, 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 blah. You must come in with knowledge and information and putting your point across. I know there are instances where women sitting in boardrooms give suggestions, but the chairperson would ignore that suggestion, and it's repeated by a man, and he would say, yes, that's a correct suggestion. It's important to put up your hand up and say, excuse me, I had said this earlier, and repeat and reiterate it. They will not eat you alive for you saying that. They will just coil back and they'll find another way of putting you back down. But you must always bounce back with confidence and with knowledge. That will really push you ahead. And you'll find that many women leaders globally, whenever they are talking, they have the facts at their fingertips, and they are able to really send the message across. So it's confidence, knowledge, and also putting on a firm face, looking at people straight in the eye and saying, this is the position, this is my position, and sticking to your position. It's not a question of being aggressive, holding placards of women activists. No. You have to now play that game at a higher level, and also at the level of who your colleagues are, whoever it is that you're at. And that a woman exuding confidence and shows that she knows her stuff really gets a lot of things ahead. So that's one thing I would really encourage many young women, many women who are in leadership positions. Exude your confidence, show you know your stuff, and stick to it, and meet whatever it is requirements that are put forward to you.
Okay, those are really important. I think as a woman, sometimes it's really hard to exude that confidence. So we have to practice doing it all the time, right? Yeah. Maybe even in front of the mirror or something. And I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, it helps. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. there's a question about the situation going on now, of course, with COVID-19 and the coronavirus. And you discussed a little bit about having women participate in the discussions on environmental management and sustainable development. So what would you suggest now with regards to COVID-19, how more women's voices can be heard with the management of COVID-19?
Oh, they have to be heard at all levels. Yeah. Because, COVID-19 is not something happening somewhere. It's happening in our households. And women are the ones who are in the households. And with the lockdowns, we have women are now having to take care of the families in different ways that they had not been used to, because maybe people were working, husbands were not around, children were in school and all that. Women have now become the center of the household management, and decision making has now come to them. And of course, we have the whole issue of domestic violence arising from the lockdowns. And again, women's perspectives and perspectives of young girls really have to be brought in, and also of young boys who are also victims of the violence within the household. So women's opinions have to be brought out from the household. And when I'm talking about not their opinions as such, but their views, I'm sorry, my microphone is going off. Okay, my earphone was going off. Women's views have to be brought in to understand what is the impact of COVID-19 at the household level. Then we also have to understand what is happening at the household level for girls and boys, and also all of the men. But at that center, we have women also will always, they're the ones who will be cooking, taking care of the hygiene situations, the sanitation situations. They're the ones who are going to be looking for water, going out to look for water for cleaning and all that. They're the ones who are being affected because of lack of access to clean water, lack of access to food, lack of access to money to go and buy food. There are all sorts of things that are happening at that household level. So my views would be that start from the household. The household differs. You can be in a poor community, you can be in a middle class community, you can be whatever it is, everybody is affected. So let us find out what is happening. How can these challenges that are being faced be used to improve on policy making, to be able to address not only just the impact of COVID-19, but we may have other pandemics that when we have to respond in the same way, at least we know how to address these emerging issues at the household level. So I would say that let us go out and ask what is happening. How are these views going to help us improve on the response mechanisms, and also for future mechanisms and response strategies. So let us start from the household level.
Okay, thank you so much. And as you said, for future as well, because sounds like this will be with us for a long time. So we really need to listen to those women at the household level, like you said. There's a more personal question for you as a woman leader. How do you avoid burnout?
Wow. I think I don't know whether I'm continuously burning out.
Right.
In terms of, I mean, on a personal level, I enjoy farming. So that takes my challenges. I enjoy seeing things grow. So I'm a farmer in another world. I also I do a lot of work with Rotary. Because I believe through my work as a Rotarian, I'll be able to give back to society. I'll be able to help those who are in a worse position than I am. So that's another thing that I do. And currently, I'm coordinating the programs for our district. So that also gives me a different perspective. At the same time, at any one time, I always look into everything from a gender lens. What does it mean for men? What does it mean for women, young girls, young boys, and all that? So those keep me busy. I enjoy music. I like listening to a lot of music. I enjoy having fun with my kids. They're teenagers. So in many ways, you kind of release a lot of tensions and all that. I like listening to people's opinions on issues and hearing how the perspectives are. Like now, I'm in a group where COVID-19 is being discussed, and I'm like, good God, what do I do? But it's good to listen to other perspectives and what everybody's saying. Yeah. So a lot of activities on the side, and that keeps me going. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds like you have lots of different activities going on everywhere. So you're able to, so you have never-ending energy as well. It sounds like. Okay, and one last question for you. So you spoke a little bit about how your biggest challenge was convincing people that gender matters, to look at things with the gender lens. And so I suppose from your experience, what would you suggest, or what would be your advice when everyone is telling you that your idea is not a good idea? How do you continue moving forward?
I first would try and find out, why do you think it's not a good idea? Yeah. And that has happened. It's not that it's something hypothetical. You're pushing. I can give you an example, which goes back to when I was a lecturer, just to show you how the challenges have been for over the 30 years. When I was a young lecturer in law at the University of Nairobi, around about 1988-89, the syllabus for teaching law changed, and we were told to come up with new ideas and new subjects, new topical areas for teaching law. And that was the first time in the history of the university, or the faculty of law, that we were moving from the traditional law subjects. So I put forward the 2 courses, and I said I would teach a course on women in the legal process. But first I'd called it Women and Law, and the other was Children and Law. And remember, I was the only woman there. And of course, I received all sorts of negative comments. And they were like, no, women are already taken care of in the traditional courses. We don't need to have any women's. What are those women issues you're talking about? Children, no. But it took me a year to convince the Faculty of Law that Women and Law is a very important program. And coming in from the Nairobi UN conference, which had happened in 1985, we had seen an influx of a lot of writings on importance of feminist legal perspectives, feminism and law, and all that. It was important for me to show them that we are moving forward. Law can never be the way it is. We have to look at law from different perspectives, and law has a differentiated impact on the lives of men and women. So what I did is I consistently wrote articles, spoke with my colleagues, and at the final stage convinced them that it was important that we should have the course on women and law. So they say, no, we can't have women and law, so they changed it to women in the legal process. And I said, okay, that one I can live with it. The course is still being taught today. And children and law wasn't so difficult because we were heading towards the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. So it was easier to convince them on children's rights, but not on women's rights. So that's just giving you an example that you have to be consistent in your message, and you have to support your message with data and information. To be very honest, when I proposed the Women and Law course, I had just finished a diploma in women's law at the University of Oslo. And then it was when feminist legal studies was starting. And I actually had no clue how I was going to run that course, but I knew I needed to run the course. So I really went into reading and talking to different people about it, the importance of it, even coming up with court cases to show actually there is a differentiated impact, and we need to address this. And as a follow-up, I set up a regional NGO called Women and Law in East Africa, which now focused on research on the impacts of law at at household level on the lives of women, and how this has affected their relationships with men, and going up the ladder up to government level. So we actually wound up the NGO in the early 2000s, but this actually led into us having concrete data for Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania that we would use as a basis to push our case forward. So again, Sarah, it's a question of having the facts, and in addition to the knowledge and confidence, but you must have that facts. And really, that is how that's a strategy I've used all along in my career. Yeah.
Wow. So, and thanks to your perseverance, you opened this NGO that now is making so much a difference and is actually doing research.
Yeah.
So from what I understand, we need confidence, we need the facts, like you said, we need to have the knowledge, perseverance. But also I saw you were a little bit flexible with changing the name of the course.
Yeah.
And say, okay, I'll give you a little bit. and consistent in your message, like you said.
Yeah.
So I think we'll end it here. I'll pass it back to you, but before I do, I just want to say thank you so much for all of what you said. And you said leading with humility, and I think that you're such an example of that. And you opening the space for other women as well to move forward. And so thanks again, Janet. And I'll pass it back to you, Da.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, I think we're gonna wrap up. Once again, thank you so much for Dr. Kabeberi Machariais for sharing her experience. It's very inspiring. I also want to thank for our audiences from all over the world who watch this video and who will watch this video afterward. Thank you so much. Please follow our social media page for upcoming events. We do have a lot of online lectures in many fields, so please follow that, and also our website, which is www.mctc.mfa.gov.il. We have a lot of interesting programs coming up, so please stay tuned. And once again, thank you so much, and shalom.
Thank you too. Shalom.
Thank you. Bye. Bye. Thank you, Janet.
Yeah, bye.